My name is Mary Austin. I'm a long-term friend of Freddie's.
For 33 years, Mary Austin kept Freddie Mercury's biggest secrets. She watched him date men while living in his mansion. She held his hand as he died from AIDS. She inherited his entire fortune worth millions. But there was one secret even darker. In 2024, after selling his home for $30 million, Mary finally spoke the truth. What she revealed about their relationship shocked the world. The truth about what really happened between them is finally coming out. Mary Georgina Austin was born on 6th of March, 1951 in a small flat above a cobbler's shop on Fulham's North End Road. That same week, Britain's coal rations were cut again, and her family felt the struggle deeply. Her parents, Alfred and Rita, were both deaf, so their home was filled with fingers spelling instead of sound. Even their Bakelite alarm clock was one they could feel rather than hear. The rent was $210 a week, but it was often unpaid, forcing them to pawn blankets each winter just to afford a 100 weight of coal that lasted only about 3 evenings. By the time she was 7, Mary was already helping her parents with utility bills and even bartering leftover bread at market stalls for bruised fruit. Growing up in a silent household sharpened her attention. Teachers noticed she could Libra 3 conversations at once, yet she spoke so softly that classmates had to lean in to hear her. That quiet pull would one day catch the attention of Freddie Mercury. By 1966, London was alive with color. But Mary, only 15, was earning $3 a week working at BA's famous fashion store in Kensington. She spent her days pinning velvet mini dresses onto mannequins, bound for stars like Twiggy while surviving on tea made with evaporated milk and shared cigarettes in the stockroom. Marianne Faithfull and MC Jagger were among the customers she brushed past, tape measure in hand, pretending to be professional while secretly noticing that some dresses cost more than her father made in a month. But Bieber was more than a job. She memorized Pantone colors, sketched window displays in a worn notebook, and practiced signing fashion terms to her parents at night. When the founder, Barbara Hulanicki, once praised her sense of color, Mary wrote in her diary that it was proof she could be more than just the deaf girl's daughter. That small moment kept her dreaming through the long hours, surrounded by clothes she could never afford. In January 1968, she enrolled in evening classes at Regent Street Polytechnic, determined to build a better future. The tuition was $6 per term, half of what she made in a year. To cover it, she cleaned Mayfair offices late at night, scrubbing cigarette burns from carpets until 1 o'clock in the morning after finishing her shift at Biba. She managed only 5 of 18 classes before falling behind on payments. One night, she collapsed on the Piccadilly line, waking up at Cockfosters with bloodied knuckles from gripping her mop too tightly. She ended up in Charing Cross Hospital for exhaustion, with no refund policy. She had paid for lessons she never completed. Quietly, she tore up her registration slip and told herself she would learn from life instead. Years later, she would write down Freddie's lyrics by hand while he sang them, proving she had never needed those shorter-than classes after all. In the spring of 1969, while working at a small boutique inside Kensington Market, Mary met a lanky young man who strode in with dramatic energy. He dropped a cravat on the counter and declared that it needed reinventing. The price tag read, 10 shillings. When she quoted it, he argued loudly, sparking laughter from nearby stall holders. Mary calmly replied that if he could redesign it so brilliantly, then surely he could afford it. Their eyes locked across a pile of paisley until he finally handed over the money, adding tuppence for her trouble before sweeping out with his cape swirling behind him. Only later did she Learn his name, Farik Bulsara, an art student and aspiring rock singer. That quick encounter over a scarf would change both their lives. A week later, he returned and invited her to a small Italian restaurant on Earl's Court Road. He ordered Chianti, calamari, and tiramisu, which came to 4.12 more than she made in a week. Over dinner, he sketched ideas for album covers on the paper tablecloth, explaining how he believed opera and rock could come together. Mary admitted she knew little about either, but was drawn to his certainty. When the bill came, he put on a playful show, digging through his pockets before producing a single $5 note, tipping the waiter with the change. At the bus stop, he told her that one day he would take her to restaurants without prices on the menu. Within 5 years, that promise came true. When Queen's first gold record allowed them to share a flat on Holland Road. The place they rented at 26 Holland Road cost $10 a week and barely felt livable. The room had cracked walls, no heat, and a carpet chewed by mice. To keep rats from crawling onto the bed, Mary balanced the mattress on old milk crates. At night, she heard the scratching of rodents under them. The kitchen was nothing more than a coin-fed hot plate placed on top of a wardrobe, where she stretched a single tin of beans into 2 meals. Freddie worked on songs deep into the night in a battered, upright piano that was always a semitone flat. Mary pinned blankets over the windows so neighbors would not complain about the 3 a.m. music. On Fridays, she quietly used $3 from her $9 wages to pay for Queen's rehearsal space, never telling the band she was the reason the lights stayed on. During the winter of 1972, frost formed on the inside of the windows, and she joked that the first notes of 7 Seas of Rye were played in visible breath. By 1971, the two of them had opened a small stall in Kensington Market called Bling, Bang and Glitter. The rent was $250 a day. Mary bought second-hand 1930s gowns from Portortuella Road, cut them apart, and turned them into bold tops inspired by Freddie's sketches. On their best Saturday, they made $38 more than Freddie earned in a month working at a grocery store. Mary even stitched Freddie's now iconic Harley Quinn jacket on a borrowed Singer sewing machine. One of her most ambitious pieces was a white satin cape with 96 silver eyelets, which cost them $4.72 to make, but was later insured for $12,000 during Queen's 1976 tour. Brian May later said the money from their stall helped him buy his first Vox AC30 amp, crediting Mary with making it possible for Queen to grow. When the band secured late-night recording time at Trident Studios, Mary was the only outsider invited. On 15th of December 1972, she sat beside the mixing desk while Freddie layered vocals for Keep Yourself Alive, holding her breath so the microphones would not catch any sound. She kept careful notes of tape counter numbers each time he made a mistake, becoming the unpaid log keeper of the session. At one point, Freddie asked if his vocals sounded grand or ghastly. Mary assured him they were grand, giving him the confidence he needed. Producer John Anthony later said her calm presence did more for Freddie's nerves than any studio trick could. She carried the acetate home at dawn, wrapped carefully in her only wool coat. Mary also handled the band's money when there was hardly any. She kept their ledger in a small cash book showing weekly expenses of $22 against an income of only $11. She convinced a music shop on Tottenham Court Road to lease them a PA system for $60 a day, payable after gigs. Many nights they ate only because Mary brought day-old Chelsea buns, discarded from Biba's Cafe. In July 1973, the band's van broke down on the way to Torque. Mary pawned her grandmother's locket for $15 to cover repairs, finally retrieving it months later when Queen received their first record advance. By the end of that year, She managed to save 47 bisetons in a joint account for the band at National Westminster Bank in Kensington. At Christmas in 1973, Freddie proposed with a modest 9-carat gold ring he bought for $12 at a pawnbroker. After a concert at Hammersmith Odeon, he led her onto the empty stage, knelt, and asked if she would be his wife once Queen's success could support them. She agreed, but insisted they wait until the band earned a gold record. When Freddie bought Garden Lodge for $500,000 in early 1977, Mary thought the Georgian villa would be their forever home. Yet within months, the 28-room house felt less like theirs and more like a private stage. Freddie filled it with treasures. An 18th century Chippendale dining suite, a pair of Louis XVI gilt mirrors he bought at Christie's for $99,800, and a wall-sized Andy Warhol print. Weekend deliveries of antique statues arrived so often that the local movers nicknamed the house Versailles West. Mary later admitted she sometimes hid in the attic flat she had once called a bedsit because she no longer recognized the rooms downstairs. By late 1978, Freddie's growing circle of artists, club owners, and Japanese dealers treated Garden Lodge like an after-hours salon. Mary, who had once chosen simple cream curtains for the windows, now felt like a guest who had forgotten the password. Only a few years earlier, in 1975, Mary had shopped on Kings Road for second-hand bought jackets that cost $3 each. 2 years later, she was sitting front row at Zandra Rodis's spring show in a 480 O.C. Clark gown. The sudden change in her wardrobe showed the power of rock star money, but not her comfort. She confessed to a friend that she felt like a cardboard cutout in Coeur. At the AAR Is Born premiere in Leicester Square on 14th of January, 1977. Photographers shouted Freddie's name, while Mary stood half a step behind dressed in emerald satin and Cartier earrings clutching a bag she had borrowed from Queen's stylist. Backstage at the Forum in Inglewood that December, Rudy's teased her about her $300 Manolo heels sinking into cables. She laughed, but in her diary she wrote, "Everyone else is wearing the costume. I feel like I am the costume." The glitter made her visible, but it also reminded her how far she had drifted from the shy shop girl who once patched up Freddie's jeans. Mary had what every fan dreamed of, a pass that gave her access everywhere. She saw Freddie test somebody to love at Hyde Park on September 18, 1976. Tape a silver star to his chest for Earl's Court on June 7, 1977. And perfect the mic stand twirl that would define Live 8 years later. From the wings, she noticed more private moments, too, like after the encore in Houston on December 11, 1977. When Freddie skipped their usual champagne and instead left with a group of club regulars on the Japan tour the next spring, she realized that post-show invitations now listed only one guest, Mr. Mercury, and a +1. When she asked if she should book her own flight home, Freddie kissed her forehead and said, "Book 2 seats. I might join you, darling." She took the hint and flew alone. The cheers of 20,000 fans could not hide the silence between two people who had once shared a single takeaway pizza and a tiny bedsit. Freddie's love for art grew into an obsession during 1977 and 1978. He spent $72,000 on Edido period lacquer, 14Y on a Maji Clois charger, and $5,000 a week at Hayashi Kimono in Ginza. Southern later found 17 separate auction catalogs in Garden Lodge, each marked in Freddie's neat handwriting with phrases like "must have" or "show Mary." He often asked her opinion on prints, but would then outbid himself moments later. Mary admitted the pieces were beautiful, yet the constant flow felt overwhelming. She once said his inner sanctuary seemed more like a museum with no closing hours. The turning point came when a 1.88 m bronze of the thunder god Ryan was lowered into the garden at 3 a.m. Freddie's latest indulgence costing $200. Standing in the drizzle as the statue swung over the roses, Mary thought, he's building a world I don't have the map for. One March night in 1976, Garden Lodge fell unusually silent. Just after midnight, Freddie paced between the Japanese screen and the bay window before saying the 4 words that would change Mary's life. I think I'm bisexual. He was 29. Queen had just topped the U.S. charts with Bohemian Rhapsody, and months of touring had forced him to face questions he could no longer hide. Mary, who was 25, remembered in a 2013 interview that they talked until dawn. Freddie admitted crushes on male Roys during the American tour in 1975 and confessed his fear of the tabloids. Mary had noticed a postcard from a Munich club tucked into his jacket weeks earlier, but had dismissed it. The confession ended any illusion of a traditional future. That night, the green drawing room turned into neutral ground where they began reshaping their bond in real time. Most partners in 1970s London might have reacted with anger, but Mary simply said, I think you're gay, and that's all right. She later explained that she felt a duty to keep him emotionally alive by accepting him when he feared rejection. Instead of leaving, she opened a bottle of champagne left from a party and even suggested practical steps. Shopping trips to Soho where Freddie could try more daring clothes, code words like going antiquing for his private encounters, and a promise never to betray him to the tabloids that had already attacked David Bowie. Her calm support gave Freddie the space to explore clubs like Heaven and Bang in 1977 without sinking into shame. According to music journalist Leslie Ann Jones, Freddie later said Mary kept him from blowing everything up by making a public declaration before he was ready. Their relationship evolved into what they called the third way. They were no longer lovers but more than friends. Freddie, who trusted almost no one, slipped lyrics under her door for feedback. She was the first to comment on Somebody to Love, suggesting the bridge was too long. While Queen toured, Freddie called her each night, paying reverse charges to share his fears about journalists digging into rumors from San Francisco. Mary would sit on his side of the bed with the phone, calmly easing his panic from across the ocean. By 1978, he told a Swiss interviewer that Mary was his household of trust, even though they had stopped being intimate almost a year earlier. Friends could not understand the arrangement, but it lasted longer than most marriages. Mary never moved out. They agreed on separate bedrooms, Freddie in the emerald green master suite, Mary in the lilac guest room, and a weekly Wednesday dinner where no topic was off limits except Queen's finances. She managed the house while he toured, sorting fan mail, caring for his Japanese prince, and paying the bills. Freddie visited clubs late at night and Mary waited up with tea to hear how it went. Brian May later said Freddie trusted Mary with the one thing that could have ruined him in that tabloid era, his secret life. Their home became both a sanctuary and a launchpad for his self-discovery. Mary's diary reveals that their last physical intimacy happened on October 12, 1977 after Queen finished recording News of the World. Freddie, thrilled with his vocals on Get Down, Make Love, invited her to celebrate. They kissed and spent the night together. At dawn, Mary felt it was a farewell to that closeness. She never spoke of it publicly until a private BBC interview in 1996.